sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that gives you a whole lot more for a whole lot less than Bella Thorne. That's what we call an inside joke, but if you don't get it now, you will by the end of the episode. I'm Bianca, and with me, as always, is sex therapist and every trichophiliac's wet dream, Christy Powell.
Howdy.
And joining us again is Rudy Bee, otherwise known as ExCultBaby, who is an atheist YouTuber, a dungeon master extraordinaire, and more frequently, the owner of a brand new OnlyFans account.
Yes. Hi. Hello.
Hey, Rudy, how are you doing today?
Just fabulous now. Happy to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. We're going to be discussing Rudy's experience on the app, as well as the changes resulting from a debacle with a Hollywood celebrity scam, and how to start your own OnlyFans account, if that's something you're into.
Yeah, so if you've got questions about using OnlyFans on either end of the screen, or just want to call in to share something sexy that you've done for money, hit us up. We're at 512-991-9242, or you can call the show at tiny.cc/callsex, because the show is starting right now.
All right. All right, Rudy, so let's jump into it right away, straight from the top. What is OnlyFans?
So OnlyFans is a social media platform that was kind of sort of created for sex work, basically. It was intended to be sex worker friendly. So the way it works is that it's subscription based, and people pay a certain amount per month to see basically your feed, whatever it is that you post. And there are plenty of people who don't post anything sex work related, like tons of different stuff, but that's mostly what people use it for. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like the main user base is for sex work. So you can post pictures, you can post videos, you can DM your followers, and you can send them pay-per-view videos and messages and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and what was it that kind of drew you to OnlyFans in the first place? As you were looking through, like what was the thought process behind? Oh, this is interesting. To this is something I want to try. To this is something I've been doing for a month now.
Mm-hmm. I had heard about it quite a bit, especially with everybody in quarantine. The amount of people who are going to online sex work has skyrocketed. I mean, OnlyFans, not only the amount of people who use it to find their porn, but the people who use it to make porn, they just has taken off. And I am one of those people that joined because it was like, hey, I have been at home now for a while. I want to make money from home. And I want to be able to work by my own schedule. And one of the other reasons that I made it personally was just that I've never felt really like sexy, I guess. And it's like, I know that I'm hot, but I don't think of myself as hot. And I kind of just wanted to be like, I'm going to take pictures of myself naked and I am going to post them. It's like, it's not just me looking in the mirror and being like, it's like somebody else looking at it and being like, yes, that's all the good stuff. So it was partially just for my own sort of kind of trying to break out of that, like, ew, my body's kind of gross mentality, sort of just to help my own self-image, my own self-confidence. And it's not even something that's dependent on other people's feedback about my body. It's just me being able to put it out there and just be like, yep, this is what I look like. I looked at this picture and I was confident enough to post it where other people can see it.
Nice. All right. That sounds like a pretty awesome reward for going through this, just in terms of your emotional and mental state.
Yeah, it's validation you can spend.
Yeah,
it's practical. It's real.
Yeah. Awesome. Are there any other, like when you were first starting out, what were some of the considerations or maybe concerns or challenges that came up as you were starting to pursue this as an option?
Firstly, I can't promote it on my Facebook page, which really sucks because I just like I really just don't want my fiance's family to know that I have it. If they happen to find out, then it's like, oh well. But it's like, that's a can of worms that if I could help not opening it, I would prefer not to. And another thing that I kind of, a wall that I ran into pretty quickly was realizing like, oh, I need to be posting content like all the time. I mean, you don't have to really, but in order to kind of keep an audience, I mean, really,
Yeah.
You kind of do have to post pretty regularly. I take like big batches of photo shoots and then I will upload them to the website and have it set up so that they will release like one set of photos every 6 hours. If I don't post something else in between, then since whenever my last post was, it'll post another one 6 hours later.
Okay.
And then just realizing like how difficult it is to take a lot of pictures of yourself, especially in various poses. Like, it's not just portraits, you know, it's not just like you can, like, it's not as easy as taking a selfie. And even that I struggle with. So figuring out how to take pictures of myself has also been like something that I kind of had to run into right away. But fortunately, because I'm a YouTuber, I already have like a bunch of various sized tripods and ring lights and stuff like that. So I already had the equipment. I just had to figure out how to use it a little bit differently than I'd already been using it.
Okay, awesome. So take note, everybody who's got tripods. This could be a viable option. Oh, my
and now be suspicious of everybody you know who has like professional lights and tripods in their office.
No lie. I got 3 professional lights, which is why I look so glowy right now. And as I was setting them up, me and my partner were playing around and we made the room red. And then he was like, you might want to like turn these off. Everybody's going to think you're like camming from outside. I was like, yeah, they can think that if they want. That's fine. Yeah. So you said before we got started that this is this your 1 month anniversary on OnlyFans? You've been doing it for a month now.
Yeah. This is officially day 28, 29, something like that. Like, it's been like exactly 4 weeks now. And it's been fun. It's been interesting. And yeah, I mean, I've already run into things that I liked and things that I didn't like about the platform, and but it's been cool. It's been an experience.
Do you have any fun or cringy stories? I mean, I know it's only been a month, but I'd imagine that platform kind of facilitates the cringier side of interactions with strangers on the internet.
I will say for the most part, the interactions haven't been cringy. I've gotten to. There were definitely fetishes I didn't know existed that I know about now.
If the internet is good for just one thing, that's what it would be.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, huh, okay. And at first, I remember I had a conversation with one of my friends a while ago, and she's way freakier than me. So she was like, yeah, I've set people videos of me peeing for like $5. And I'm like, that's crazy. And then somebody was like, can I see pictures of your belly button? And now I'm like, I get it. I probably sent someone a video of me peeing for $5. What does it matter? I'm gonna pee anyway. Like,
if you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Yeah,
like you know, I get it now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Have you sent any belly button pics? I imagine that's something I'd be able to do fairly. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, if somebody asks for it, if I can do it, like, if they're gonna pay for it, why the hell not? Like, it doesn't have to be like, unless it makes me wildly uncomfortable. Why not? Really? I mean.
Have you come across anything that did make you uncomfortable, or anything that you were like, nah, I'm not going to do that thing? Maybe not yet. Maybe I'll warm up to it, but right now it might be a little bit much.
Yeah, not really yet. I mean, it's more that I've been introduced to or asked to do things that I just haven't gotten around to doing yet, but nothing that I've been like, nope, can't do that.
Mhm.
But I also, like I said, haven't had it for very long. And maybe this is just my experience, I don't know, but my audience seems almost kind of shy. Like, I have a handful of people who, like, it's like I have maybe like 30 subscribers or something like that, 30 subscribers, and then of those 30 or so, I have had some level of conversation with like 5 or 6.
Okay. Interesting.
But those are
I'd
also
be
the-
almost curious to go ahead and schedule now to get together for your, 1 year, 1 month anniversary.
Right, there you go.
and do a little contrast and compare, because I'll be fascinated to learn, like, as you learn the ropes and as you look at these new things, how that, has your boundaries shift, how that shifts your some of your strengths and some of your efforts.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm interested in that too. I want to know what's going to change between then and now, because and this is probably the weirdest thing about me having an OnlyFans, is I don't really watch porn that much. Like, ever. Like, I grew up in a situation where if I wanted to masturbate, there was such a high chance of me getting caught if I was looking at porn that I absolutely could not and never did. So it's like, I guess I just developed a good sexual imagination that I just don't need porn. And that has been somewhat of a problem, because it's like, I don't know what's sexy. What do people think is sexy? I have no idea. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just doing my best.
Oh my goodness! I'd imagine that actually works in your favor, because you're not trying to replicate something you've seen. You're kind of coming at it fresh, and like, this is just you. This is who you are, and you're doing what makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I think that, at least to some degree, the people who are subscribed, at least they seem to think that that's fine. I mean, and if they want something very specific, they can ask for it. It's not that I'm not going to do stuff, but I'm learning from people all the time. I'm like, okay, what are your fetishes? What are your kinks? What do you want to see more of? What do you like that I've already done?
Mm-hmm.
Just try to get as much feedback as I can.
Wow.
Well, and I don't mean to suggest that you're by any means bad at this, but I want to say that the internet is a diverse place where people are looking for a diversity of things, and somebody who is very new to the scene is a large part of that. And that can definitely get into some difficult territory where, folks try to take advantage and all of that sort of stuff. But honestly, your kind of freshness or distance from the scene is probably a large part of the appeal.
Yeah, I think to some degree that may be the case. At least in my case, I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what makes you you on the app, and maybe how you interact with it that might be different from someone like Bella Thorne interacting with it. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like being gender non-conforming, non-binary, trans on OnlyFans? Is there a large audience base that is open to that? Is it a welcoming place? Are you finding maybe a little bit of, maybe it's not, has it been built for all kinds of people, are you finding?
I know some people who are guys that are content creators, and they're few and far between, and typically they seem to be less successful, but that's not 100% the case. I know plenty that are like in the top 10% or whatever. And I've also seen plenty of non-binary people, but at least from what I have seen of those people, and I guess I kind of do this myself, I kind of do a performance of feminine gender for the most part when I'm making sexual content, because that's, if people are looking for a body like mine, they're probably expecting some level of femininity along with it. And so far that's been fine. I haven't had really any like dysphoric type of issues with that personally. And it's kind of just like, this is what people are expecting from my body type, and that's, I'm performing anyway, so why not perform gender at the same time,
That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And then how would you talk about maybe being Black on the app? Does at all race factor into your experience so far? Is it a very white audience? Is it very diverse?
Well, I will say to start with, most of the people who are subscribed do not have profile pictures. So I don't know the diversity of my audience at all. But with the way that porn is categorized, race is always a factor to some degree. I mean, there are plenty of people who are probably indifferent, and they probably care more about the body type than specific colors and features. But there are people who are specifically looking for, like, light-skinned Black girl as a porn category, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I haven't noticed that in particular concerning me, at least not as far as anybody in my audience has expressed. But I'm sure that it is present. I just haven't been made aware of it directly yet.
Interesting. Okay. I'm fascinated by this whole conversation, because OnlyFans is something I've heard a lot about as well, especially jumping into the YouTube scene. It was kind of been like a running joke that like, oh, and then you start the OnlyFans account. Mm-hmm. And it never actually, I think you might be the first person I know personally to actually jump in and actually get your feet wet with this. So I'm just fascinated on a personal level as well. So I guess my last question for you for this segment is, what are your goals with this? Is this do you consider it a hobby or an art form? Is it a gig for a couple extra bucks? Is it a career change? Like, would this be something you'd be interested in pursuing long term and growing in? Like, how do you see this playing out in your future?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, originally I joined it primarily because I was like, hey, I have been staying at home for a while and I realize that I like it, but I also want to make money. Like, I don't want to be constantly broke. So it was originally just like, hey, make some cash on the side. And then I started doing it and I was like, I enjoy this. I like this. This is fun. And so I would like to get better at it. I would like to continue to pursue it. I would like to, look into other avenues, maybe join other similar platforms. Because as we may talk about later, the website OnlyFans has its issues. And there are people who have left the website for other websites because of those issues. But overall, my experience has been positive, and I'd like to grow my audience from that. I'd like to make more money off of that if I can.
That's awesome. we do have a little bit of time. I would love to hear a little bit about what these particular platform related issues are. I know we are going to get into the whole Bella Thorne thing, as well as the fact that sex workers on this app have been, and other apps have been, waving the flag a little bit and saying, hey, as soon as this becomes mainstream, as soon as it becomes respectable, like, we're going to get kicked off. Can we make sure that doesn't happen? But are there individual platform specific issues that you're seeing or that you've heard other creators talk about?
For one thing, it's a website and it's not an app.
Okay.
And that just has so many, because everybody, maybe it's just me, but who sits on their computer to watch porn? You've got a computer in your hand. You use that. So when you have to use a website, it's definitely frustrating with notifications. I have to constantly be check. I have a link on my homepage on my phone to the website, so I can check it over and over again all day to make sure that nobody's DM'd me, to make sure that I didn't get a tip that I didn't know about or something like that. And the website will notify me via email if I get a new subscriber or if I got a tip, but sometimes it doesn't do it right away. And there are some things, or like it doesn't notify me if I get a comment. So there's some things that I just wish that there was a better notification system for. And then there's just the fact that the website itself can just be glitchy sometimes. Like sometimes sometimes I just have trouble even getting on it, or it's really slow or something like that. But yeah.
Interesting. I totally assumed that it would have been an app. Like that makes more sense than a website. That's interesting. Okay. Well, more power to them. Hopefully they jump on that though and make it a little bit more accessible to people who maybe don't have access to a laptop or a computer.
Well, I will say one of the reasons that I have heard that it is not an app is because if they made it an app, then they would get charged more because it's an app that makes money. And if they get charged more, then they will have to charge the users more. So it
does slice up the pie a little bit differently, but it also just complicates things around downloading content and like possession of that content, and there are all these like really complex things that go into it, but it is surprising, at least in one way, which is something that we've kind of touched on, but OnlyFans is kind of different than conventional porn in a lot of ways because of those constant updates and because of that like connection and relationship with the performer. I don't mean to overly compare it to escort work, but it is maybe different than like conventional studio production acting in that way, because you are able to like work directly with the consumer and provide services that are well outside of, this is what I wanted to create, this is what I think is sexy, this is what I'm now going to sell you. You can actually, have, not just bespoken porn, but porn of like really different qualities and stripes and different sort of role play things and all of these different complexities. So yeah, I think that a native app could actually facilitate that really well. And I wouldn't be surprised as it continues to grow as a platform if we don't end up seeing more of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that is one of the things that I really like about using OnlyFans, is that it is so like you have a connection with your subscribers as opposed to just following a page and just taking whatever they give you. The main draw is the ability to ask for what it is that you want to see. And I will say again, I've been a little bit frustrated that some of my audience isn't giving me a whole lot of feedback, but it's like, well, if you guys are still subscribed, even if you're not giving me feedback, obviously whatever I'm putting out is good enough, but I wish you'd be a little bit more, forthcoming with the feedback, but whatever,
Yeah, no news is good news is a truism, but not so much when you're creating content, especially such personal stuff. You're kind of like, put myself out here, guys. Give me something to work with.
And again, especially because I don't watch a lot of porn, so I'm kind of like, is this good? Does anybody like this?
Am I enjoying porn?
Yeah.
All right, that is fascinating, and I'm going to be chewing on that for a while. Now, I'm in the middle of a budgeting session, like an ongoing budgeting session at work, and so now my brain is like trying to crunch numbers about, well, if you pay more for the app, but then more people sign up because it's an app, then when does it balance out? But that's a terribly boring conversation for a radio show, so let's continue on. We actually do have a caller or two, so do we want to take a couple calls before we jump to the second part of this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch base again with David and get a little bit of an update. David, walk us through your past call and tell us what's going on tonight.
Well, I'm from North Carolina, and the last time I spoke with you, you called Yahtzee on me when I told you I had all these things going for me. I don't know if you recall that. But I was dating a trans man at the time. We've since broke up.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, we're still good friends. And I've discovered that I fill the daddy dom position quite well in a relationship because of him. Mm-hmm. So I have since started dating a a younger man, about 15 years younger than me. He's 30 years old. So it's been an interesting couple of months. My ex is now engaged to somebody else, so I do wish them the best of luck. So it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot has happened since you called last.
Yeah. Since we last spoke, or when we last spoke, you encouraged me simply to stand by my now ex and try to be the support that I was trying to be. And it has worked because we've remained very close. Most of the rest of his friends have left him by the wayside because of the fast changes in relationships, and it's been very difficult for him. And he's very thankful that I'm there, and I'm thankful that I'm there for him. So.
Good. I'm glad you're able to continue to be a support for somebody. I know it can be tricky to maintain relationships that are positive with an ex, but it sounds like you're on your way to something new and exciting with this new person. Do you want to talk a little bit about exploring the dom side of you with a new partner who's younger? That sounds like an interesting conversation.
Well, I'm not sure how much into kink this new partner is. We just started dating. The ex was quite into it, so I got quite a bit of practice there. I do think this new partner is into some, simply because of some things that he does like in bed. So, and he has called me daddy, so.
Oh, there you go.
That pretty much does it.
That's a good clue in right there. Is this a conversation that you're currently having with him? Is it something that you haven't broached yet?
I haven't broached it a lot yet. I have asked him what he's into, just on the mild side. I haven't broached any kink subjects yet, so.
Okay, well that'll be a fun conversation. You'll have to let us know how that goes when you have it.
Yeah, I'm excited by the new prospect of a nice, steady relationship. And so it's going to be an adventure, trying to switch back with just having. I do know that the new partner is monogamous, so coming out of a polyamorous relationship, it's going to be something quite difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, is that a conversation that y'all have, discussed explicitly about, not who they are or who you are, but what the relationship is?
A little bit. We discussed that we were both looking for a steady relationship, and when I asked about what he thought about multiple partner relationships, he was not highly receptive to that. So I'm going on the assumption that he's monogamous.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, this sounds like you're on the brink of, like you said, an adventure. This is gonna be new. This is gonna be different. You're finding your way with a new partner who's younger than you, who might have a different expectation.
Yeah. I also have a little bit of experience. Experiences. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No worries.
I have a bit of experience doing a little bit of what Rudy does on a different site. And it is quite difficult, especially if you're not in the quote-unquote mainstream of types.
Mm-hmm. How have you been finding that?
Yeah, what tips do you have on finding your niche?
Yeah.
Well, for me, what worked was that I would put on shower shows, and people seemed to love those.
Nice.
And the fact that people like bears a lot on the site that I was on helped me out a lot. So, because I'm a bit of a bear.
Yeah, one of the first photo shoots that I did, I had my best friend come over, and I had, ring lights in my bathroom, and I'm just like, okay, I'm moving all the stuff out of the shower, so there's nothing else in here. And we just did lots of pictures. And it was actually super fun, but I also realized that having another person take pictures of me made it really hard to get into a sexy headspace at all. Like, there were so many times when I was just trying not to, like, grin at the camera. Did you, when you were doing that kind of thing, how did you set up your camera? Like, did you have somebody else film, or did you, like, set the phone somewhere in the bathroom and just kind of press go live or whatever?
Well, for mine, what I did was I did it through a computer. I had a dedicated webcam that I could move around to different spots in the bathroom for my bathroom shoots and for my bedroom shoots too, because I did some of those. And what seemed to work best was setting the camera so that most of my, or all of my torso and my head showed, and pretty much down to my knees. And for some reason, that seemed to work the best for everybody. And it just, if I could see the screen and read it and reply to live shows, that helped because the audience would interact with me and ask me to turn around or do something like that. And it would earn me a little bit extra money just to do that. And then I could do private shows and things like that too.
And here I am showering for free.
Right?
David, I guess I'm curious, is your, and I don't mean to oversimplify, but is your advice, hey, try doing shower shows, or, do you have any tips about how to just try, I guess, different things? It sounds a little bit like you found your what clicked for you by throwing some stuff at the wall and just seeing what sticks. Was that your experience at all, or did you find that you just kind of lucked into something?
Well, no, it took quite a while to find out that shower shows were quite popular for me.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was that I did a lot of bedroom shows. I would go into the living room, do shows there. I would do shows in the kitchen. I would just move it around. And one day I just decided to take a shower, and I ended up with about twice the amount of people watching me as normal. So after that, what I did was concentrated on, well, it's actually from the 4-Hour Workday book. Concentrate all of your efforts on what makes you 80% of your money at the very start. And so it tended to make me more money when I did concentrate on what were my biggest money earners.
Okay. Nice. I love that we can, I love that this is a show where we can talk about like how to incorporate the 4-day work week into your sex work. Like, this is a conversation we need to be having. And I love that you're calling in, David, and sharing with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, David, we don't want to keep you too long. I do want to make sure that we say congratulations on your new relationship, and also invite you to come back and let us know how things go. If you want to talk more about being poly in a monogamous relationship, or dating somebody and discussing kink, any of those conversations we'd love to have with you.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks so much.
I can speak with you.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Take care.
All right. We have another caller. Do we want to take another call today?
Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and touch base with Cal, who's looking for maybe some advice on how to start a relationship. Cal, tell us a story. If you can hear us.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. So, I've been best friends with Sarah for a while, but, I'm in Utah and everything is super boring. And so, I I don't know if I should like actually ask her out, because like her family is really Mormon and like isn't really like that accepting around like gay people or trans people, even though they like they might know I'm trans, but like I don't know how they would like trying to like date her. And also I don't know how to ask my best friend that. And I don't know if that's an appropriate topic for the show, because like I don't know that much about this show particularly. I just really wanted to ask for advice.
Hey, you're in the right place. This is exactly where we come to talk about this kind of thing. And it sounds like you have two very big kind of topics to tackle. One of them is the age-old, how do I ask my best friend out? And then the other is a very, relevant topic about how do I exist and pursue a relationship as a trans person in a very religious community. And those are both huge topics. I'd love to dive into them. Christy, Rudy, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's important to take them in that order, V. I hear the concerns. Like, I don't mean to downplay it or dismiss it, but I'm not necessarily concerned about her Mormon family. I'm concerned about her, about whether or not she wants to date you. And, her family ties are certainly a factor, but really, I think the thing that you can focus on and the thing that you have some control over is your relationship with her. And if she wants to then, change her relationship with her family, or if her relationship with her family interferes with her relationship with you, ultimately we're still talking about her and her choices and the choices that she's making. And if she's making those choices, they're out of your hands. And so not necessarily something for you to stress. So I think I would really say that you can focus on her and what she's interested in. I don't know. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah. And I just don't know how to go about it at all, because like we've been best friends for like so long, and it's like, how do you talk to someone about that?
Can I ask, does she know that you're trans? Have you come out to her, or would that also be part of the conversation?
Yeah, she, like, since the first day I met her, I've been out.
Okay, good. Okay, that simplifies the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, gosh. That is a question I've struggled with as well. I've definitely had my fair share of, wanting to ask out a friend and being like, oh my goodness, how do I even broach this subject? Have you noticed, does she give you any indications that she might like you back in more than a friendly way, or would this kind of be the first time you're exploring that angle?
I think it's probably the first time. I'm not that good at noticing things like that, though.
All right. Well, if that's the case, I don't know. If it were me, I think I'd suggest maybe moving a little bit slowly at first and maybe dropping a couple hints and seeing what the reaction is. So one option would be to come out right away and be like, hey, I like you. I want to take you on a date. I'd love it if we could move this into a more romantic relationship than what we've got now. Or you could start by bringing her flowers and seeing what she does. Or, maybe inviting her out to a really nice dinner, like a picnic or something. Or, if you're social distancing right now, having like a nice Zoom meal together and seeing if you can move things into that space and feel out what her reactions are. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I will say the last time that I sort of like confessed feelings to a best friend, I was in high school. So I might not be the best person to ask about that in particular, although I will say those always turned out okay. So that's like,
you got a good track record, right?
Yeah, okay. I do.
It was JV, like, it was back in high school days, but it still counts.
Among my friends, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I was notorious for, like, whoever I happened to have a crush on pretty much always had a crush on me back. And I don't know how that works, but maybe I was just really obvious, so I don't know. But,
well, okay, rub it in, Rudy. That's fine.
Seriously.
I'm talking about high school. Ain't nothing to brag about. As far as I will say, as far as being worried about her family, I was definitely that person. I've been in her shoes in that way of having the family that probably won't approve. Everybody that I dated, literally up to the person that I am dating now, who is actually my fiance, I was secretly dating, at least for some of the time that we were dating. So if that has to be you should probably, basically, if you end up getting to the point of, okay, we both know we like each other, we both know we want to date, if and when you get to that point, you should have an explicit discussion about, do we tell your parents about this ever? Does this need to remain a secret pretty much forever? Or is this something that they might be open to later? Because I remember looking back, I realized that I had people that I was dating and they did not understand why we were dating in secret. Like, they were fine with just talking about it. And I never really explicitly made it clear to them why there was no way in hell they could let anybody know. And it wasn't because I was ashamed of them or anything. It was just because of the family dynamics, the fact that I was in a cult, that just wasn't feasible. So with her family being Mormon, if that's something that you pursue, that is definitely a discussion that you should have.
Yeah, the therapist in me is just saying, communicate, 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 you know, rather than subtle hints and flowers, you know, show up with flowers and say, hey, I really like our friendship. It's totally fine if it stays that way, but I'd like to discuss something else. And, you know, part of that conversation may include like the question of, what do we do about your parents? And, you know, whatever her response is, it at least gives you the opportunity to make a decision, a choice. You know, if you're told at the outset, well, you're going to be a dirty little secret for the entire length of this relationship, then that may or may not be something that you're comfortable with. It's not inherently wrong for you to choose that lifestyle. It just is going to come with certain costs that I would invite you to go into with open eyes. But yeah, more than anything, I think the best piece of advice I could give you would be to take all of the pressure out of it, to recognize that you don't need this to be a romantic relationship, that it could still turn into a romantic relationship, even if you get a no right out of the gate. Yeah, that doesn't mean like keep a torch burning forever and keep like hassling or nagging somebody over and over. But you know, the reality is, people change, circumstances change, people's moods and their minds change. And I would really invite you to go into this with sort of a abundant mindset, this idea that you have everything that you need. And it might be nice to take advantage of an opportunity, which is to say, grow a relationship into something new and special, but that you don't need it. You're not obligated to it. And if she responds by saying, no, thank you, say, all right, no big deal. I'll go see that movie with somebody else. You know, it doesn't need to have any more pressure on it than getting lunch together, even if it feels pretty life or death. How is all that striking you, Cal?
That's really it actually does help a lot.
Good. I love that advice, Christy. Communication is key. Cal, as you kind of pursue this, I would suggest, as I'm echoing my co-hosts here, take it one step at a time. Don't worry about telling the family anything yet. Don't worry about any of that other stuff. Focus on you and your best friend, this person you would like to be a romantic partner, and figure it out from there. If the answer is no, then you don't need to worry about the rest. If the answer is yes, then you get to celebrate that and figure it out together. So either way, I'd say, yeah, start with focusing on your friend and see where it goes from there, and call back. Let us know how things go. We'd love to keep up with you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Keep our email address. Keep our phone number. We'd love to hear more.
Yeah. Have a good night, Cal. Awesome. All right. So we have one more caller for right now. Do we want to take it before we jump into the second part? Because I think it's actually going to tie in really well to to what we're going to be talking about next.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, let's touch base with Anthony.
Oh, hi.
Howdy.
Hi,
What's on your
Anthony.
mind? Yeah, so I actually had a question for Rudy because I personally have trouble like setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. And I was wondering, are your personal boundaries different when you're producing content for your customers, like versus when you're in an intimate or like a well-known relationship with a partner? Do you find that you're comfortable with different things between those? And then kind of tagging on to that, do you ever feel pressured to consider things or to do things that you otherwise probably wouldn't because it is sort of a transactional relationship between you and your customers?
That is a multi-tiered question, and I'll probably have you re-ask me the last parts because I will definitely forget. But as for just, I already forgot the first part of the question. Wow, my ADHD is really kicking my butt today.
Yeah, sorry, I packed two into one. The first part of it was essentially is do you find that your personal boundaries in terms of what you're comfortable with in an intimate space are different when it's you and a camera versus you and a partner?
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, my relationship dynamic specifically with my partner is, it's like, okay, we're intimate emotionally, mentally, and physically. But it's like, we also just have different stuff that we like. Like together, we are like practically kinkless. Like with me and my actual partner, he's ace, so we don't really have sex that often, period. Our relationship is very chill as far as the physicality goes, and so I guess it is very different with my customer base because they are saying very explicit things, obviously, and they are asking for very explicit things, so I kind of get into a slightly different headspace for that kind of sort of sexual stuff than I do in my actual relationship and that sexual stuff, because in my relationship, some of the most memorable sexual experiences that I've had with my partner were ones where he made a really stupid joke in the middle of foreplay and we were still laughing while we were having sex because it was so funny. And it's like, obviously none of that kind of thing is probably going to be in anything I do in front of a camera. It's very different. It's not as one-on-one, even if I am making something specifically for somebody who wants to get the quote girlfriend experience, something like that, it's still not going to be what an actual girlfriend experience with me would be. There's always going to be, a limit of how much the person knows me, and they don't really. I don't have a in-depth relationship with these people. I'm fulfilling fantasies that maybe they do have an in-depth relationship with me, and to some degree, I will try to get to know people if they want to know about me. I mean, I'm not opposed at all to pretty much talking to people as if they were dating me, as long as they are okay with paying for it. Like, I really am fine with that. It's like, yeah, okay, but I'm charging $20 for every 15 minutes. But but I'll talk to you like I'm your girlfriend as long as you pay me to do that. That's fine. I've had conversations with people that were totally casual through like the DMs and OnlyFans too, of just them kind of wanting to know a little bit about me. And that's fine. So it's like, I do have different boundaries, but to some degree it's kind of like the boundary pretty much only exists because they don't know me in real life.
Cool. That was a really great answer to that question. That was a lot more information than I thought I was going to get on that one. Thank you.
I'm glad I answered it thoroughly.
Yeah, that was that was awesome. And then the other half of it was, because you and your customers do have a transactional relationship, do you ever feel pressure to, consider requests or that sort of thing that you wouldn't normally consider?
Nope. That's something that I feel very, as a sex worker who is behind a screen, I feel very empowered to say no. Granted, I haven't been in a situation yet where somebody has asked me for something that I was like totally uncomfortable with. For the most part, actually, no, I take that back. I had one person who at least seemed like they were just trying to take advantage of the fact that I'm new and were kind of just like, oh, let's like trade videos. And I'm like, I don't do that.
I don't need any videos. I'm good. Thanks.
He was like, oh, but just send me a clip and I'll tell you if it's worth posting. And I'm like, no. And then I blocked it. Like I feel perfectly comfortable with saying, yeah, maybe some people do that. I don't. Lots of people do video trades, picture trades. I don't do trades. Like I said, I don't really watch porn that much. That is not valuable to me. I sell, I don't buy. And that's just what it is.
Nobody's tried to indecent proposal you at this point. We'll check back in a year and see what how your stories change.
Yeah, honestly, I look forward to that.
We'll do a live reaction and just have you watch yourself now and react. I love those questions though, Anthony. Those are really important things to highlight. There is a different kind of relationship that you have with a paying customer as opposed to somebody who is an intimate partner, someone who knows you really well, and kind of getting over that for me as a YouTuber, realizing, oh, these people don't know me. When they like me, they're liking what I'm giving them as like a creator. When they don't like me, it's not an implication on me, or like there's no relationship being lost there. So making sure the parasocial relationship aspect is always front and center, I'd imagine is super important just across the board.
Yeah. And I will say, as somebody who's worked customer service jobs outside of sex work, because that's kind of just customer service to some degree, it's a different kind of service, if you know what I mean. But wow, I'm so cheesy. But like my motto with customer service has always kind of been like, the customer is right to a point. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the customer is always right, because there's some shit that I'm just not going to do. There's some shit I can't do. And there is some shit that is just unreasonable. But to the degree that it makes sense, I will do whatever I can to meet somebody's standards. If they ask for a custom picture and I send them the pictures and they're like, that's not what I'm really looking for, I will take more and I won't charge them more for them. Like, I will get them the pictures that they want. But if there's something that I'm just not comfortable doing, I'm just going to say no.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for the insight. I appreciate it. And I love the show, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for calling in, Anthony. Have a good rest of your night.
Take care.
Awesome. I love these colors today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as we wait for hopefully a couple more calls, let's jump into the second half of this interview. And of course, I've been throwing the name Bella Thorne around a little bit with this like inside joke snide kind of situation. Rudy's raring to go. We're good.
I'm still ready to drag Bella Thorne.
All right. So for people who don't know what's going on, why are we bringing up this random Disney Channel actress?
D-level celebrity.
Yeah, right. Essentially, the long and short of it is a Hollywood celebrity of minimal amounts of acclaim, let's say, made an OnlyFans account, overcharged and underdelivered, so didn't actually give people what they were promised. And then the amount of refunds that were being demanded crashed the app or the website and resulted in a bunch of other OnlyFans content creators not getting their paychecks on time, and is now changing how OnlyFans does business and the rules that it puts in place and the kinds of content you can create and what you can charge for it. So just a fiasco. So Rudy, how do you feel about this whole situation? This is kind of worst case scenario for a website that is dedicated to a safe and productive place for sex workers. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, I'm just annoyed by celebrities having OnlyFans accounts, period, because the vast majority of them don't post nudes anyway. And it's like, if you want to see a scantily clad celebrity, literally open a magazine. Like it's not like this is not the platform for celebrities with having semi-nude or lewd photos that are not just, nudes, that aren't explicitly just like this is porn.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the place for it, I guess. And granted, you can post whatever you want, really, but it just is like, I don't know. It just makes me roll my eyes because it's like, okay, this platform is some people's just their paycheck. It is their income. It is their source of revenue. It isn't just a thing they do on the side for funsies. And it's like when celebrities who already have plenty of other avenues of revenue use this site and it just irritates me. It's like, you're not even posting nudes. Come on.
At least commit to the medium.
If you're gonna do sex work, do sex work. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I have to push back on that a little bit because, pornography, sex work, I mean, these are really, really broad ideas that I think part of the value in OnlyFans is that they help to broaden them further.
Right.
I certainly hear where you're coming from, and I definitely don't want to dismiss the, I don't know, tragic results. I don't know if that's quite the right way to frame it, but I recognize the pain and suffering on the end of other performers. But, I want to be careful not to, I guess, be overly narrow about what constitutes porn.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, there are definitely plenty of sexy photos out there that don't require complete nudity. I will say in Bella Thorne's case, she specifically said, "Oh, this is a nude photo that you're going to pay $200 to see." And then
that's the bullshit.
And that's just a fucking lie. So that's just a scam. And I guess I don't want to say that, that I don't want to see celebrities involved in sex work, because hell, if we can destigmatize that shit, let's do it. It's more kind of like, it feels like gentrification.
I was just gonna say, it feels like it's very similar in the way that I'm gonna move into this space as somebody who could move anywhere, but I choose this place. I'm gonna up all of the fees, the cost of living, the cost of doing business, and then I'll contribute by replacing all the traditional restaurants with my new spin on them. And we can argue about whether or not it's really Mexican food or really Thai food or whatever, but it's not the same because it's going into the coffers of somebody who could have done anything and not the people for whom this is their livelihood.
And not even just could have done anything, but already does something else. And again, it's like, do whatever you want. If you want to post semi-nude photos, if you want to post lingerie photos, well, I'm not going to stop you. If you want people to pay for them, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to shame you for it. It doesn't really matter who you are. You can do, whatever you want on whatever platform you want. But I will say, I will repeat again, in the specific instance with Bella Thorne, that was a fucking scam. Yeah. And she screwed over a lot of people.
Well, and not only that, but when she signed up for OnlyFans, well before the scam, the scandal, it was the biggest 24-hour performance that they'd ever seen. I mean, there were more people drawn to the site. It was making headlines. I mean, people were talking about this neighborhood. If we want to continue the gentrification metaphor, people were all of a sudden paying attention in a way that they hadn't before. And that could have been, or perhaps should have been, a meaningful opportunity for other performers. And the fact that she, moved in, took over the biggest, brightest house in the area, drew all of the attention, and then immediately used that opportunity to scam thousands of people, that's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
I can't highlight how big the perfect storm was, or the number of pieces that had to come together for her to be able to do, so much instant damage.
Mm-hmm. And I know that she seems, sorry. She's heard the people complaining and been like, okay, yeah, but I guess it doesn't really change the fact that technically we can't prove that OnlyFans, the way that they changed things as a direct result of that, but it seems, the timing is pretty uncanny, and they seem to be related. So, yeah. I mean, regardless, even if it didn't change anything about OnlyFans, if you say you're selling nudes, sell nudes. Don't lie. Like, it's literally just, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it is a form of customer service, and it would be really weird to do that in any other industry. So why should it be acceptable here? I think a larger conversation, though, that this kind of not only it highlighted it certainly didn't jumpstart it, is that we've seen this kind of thing happen before, especially with Tumblr is one of the websites that comes to mind. Often sex workers will be a primary content creation demographic for certain websites, and use it to find clientele, and also to share information with each other and build community and make money. And then it goes mainstream and becomes quote unquote respectable. And then the sex workers are kicked off or relegated to a subsection, or some restrictions are passed that make it more difficult to do what they do. And people have been waving the flag about this happening with OnlyFans for a while. So how does this conversation play into the Bella Thorne thing? And what are your thoughts about this? Why are sex workers considered less than respectable when we can see scantily had celebrities on movie posters all over the country?
I mean, shit, you're asking the wrong person. I have no idea. to me, it's common sense that like there's really not a difference, but that isn't how the rest of the world perceives it, and that's something that we've been trying to change for a while, I feel like. And at the same time, there's always going to be pushbacks, especially from puritanical religions. Like, I've heard sexual immorality, that phrase, so many times growing up.
Trigger warning, please.
Yeah, sorry. I should have said trigger warning. Yeah. And it's just like, with no real explanation of why anything that is like no real explanation for why it's wrong, why there's anything wrong with it, why it's bad, why any of that shit is meaningful, besides outside of whatever meaning it means to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, it seems just so transparently obvious that, like, hey, if sex work were totally legal, totally destigmatized, we could regulate it a lot more. It'd be a lot safer for everyone. It wouldn't have to have negative stigmas associated with it, because it would be perfectly safe. Well, at least as safe as any other job. I mean, there's always room for exploitation, because people get exploited even with perfectly normal, legal, regulated jobs. But they wouldn't get any more exploited, I should say, than anybody else.
Right. And it's weird to me, because a lot of these religions that kind of shy away from sex work and just sex positivity in general, the reason that I would have a problem with something I would consider sexual immorality, even using that word feels weird, but the only thing that I could equate to that would be something non-consensual, right? Like, that would be the only thing that would be a problem for me. But that is not a problem for a lot of these religious groups, right? The consent portion doesn't even seem to come into play very often when talking about, well, why is this bad? It's never about, okay, well, are these people consenting? Are these people being respected as individuals and as adults and all of this? It's so strange to think back about the fact that I was one of those people and had that mindset, and I cannot for the life of me bridge that gap now. Like, I do not understand why I thought the way I did.
Yeah, well, let's parse that out a little bit. And, with respect to anybody who's listening who, may find this content around rape and around lack of consent issues, I want to be mindful. But what we're talking about when we're talking about sexual assault is assault. We don't necessarily need to include the sexual component of it because we know that it is and should be illegal to touch somebody against their will, to strike somebody, to physically dominate somebody, to keep somebody against their will. So the sexual component is not necessary in order for it to be considered a crime or for it to be considered immoral, generally speaking. It's really just the sex that these religious views that I know we're generalizing to, but that are certainly ever present, are focused on. And there just is not a good explanation. There's not a good reason for it other than, the ulterior motives that, I might point people towards Dr. Ray's book, Sex and God, in particular, if they want to try and explore. But the reality is, whether we're talking about food or sex or something else, there's not a special need for religion to protect our sexuality, but there is an opportunity for religions to co-opt our sexuality. And I really feel like that's an important thing for us to be aware of as we're trying to navigate this kind of polluted world.
Oh, fully agree. There's this concept that sex is somehow more important than other bodily functions. Like it has this additional layer of importance, of some kind of like spiritual meaning. And on the one hand, like it's sweet to be like, oh, like sex is so important and I'm going to share it with this person and we're going to be like bonded in this special thing. And if that's how you want to view it, that's fine. But when you put that level of importance on a thing, you then become very touchy when other people don't treat it with the same reverence that you might. And if you don't have a good reason for that reverence, then it quickly becomes judgment and discrimination and prejudice against people who don't share your values there. So I think a large part of why sex work is so stigmatized, at least in the US, is because we're coming from a place of just assuming without really looking into it that sex is somehow different, somehow more important, somehow spiritually linked in some way. And so commodifying it or doing it in a way that is not considered like sacred is it gives us that ick factor. Like, what are you doing? This is supposed to be an important thing, and you're not treating it as important as I do. And, treat sex as important as you want. Like, that is your prerogative, and you get to decide exactly how you see it. But when it comes to viewing other people and how they're living their lives, that's when we come into conflict there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just funny because sex is simultaneously extremely taboo and extremely sacred.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's
at the same time.
It's like sex is the worst, dirtiest, most terrible thing you can ever do, and you should only do it with the one person you love more than anyone else.
But when you do it with that person, it is a gift. It is holy. It is your bond. It is everything. And it's just like, oh my
But if
God,
you don't like it, do it anyway. And also, it's not that big of a deal. And also, you shouldn't practice or have any help or assistance. Your body should just your body should just naturally know what to do. And if it doesn't work, don't worry about it. It's really, you don't need it anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So we have a couple more calls. I'm excited. But first I want to jump a little bit into the last bit of this segment, which is as you're kind of navigating this new realm, this new area of content creation, are you noticing more cultural biases now more than you used to? I know that when I became an atheist, suddenly I was like, oh, I'm noticing these things now. And same with coming out as non-binary or bisexual. Like every time I found a new passion or a new part of myself, I started noticing how that piece interacted with the rest of the world. And I'm wondering if you've experienced the same thing here.
Yes. In exactly the same way that like when you learn a new word, you suddenly hear it everywhere. And yeah, what you were saying about being an atheist, as soon as I became an atheist, all of a sudden, whenever somebody was like, oh, non-religious people, those people just like, I started noticing it more like, that's fucking weird. And now, anytime I see any real like shame around sex work or just sex in general, it seems so much more obvious and glaring and strange because it's just like, why do you care what those people are doing? Well, who are they hurting? The only people that they're interacting with are the people that are buying their content. So clearly they're okay with it. So what does this have to do with you?
Exactly.
I mean, there was a Facebook argument that I got into a little while ago because when at the height of like the hashtag Save the Children thing, I made a post that was like, hey, just so you know, if you're one of these people that's really concerned about this all of a sudden, and you also don't want to, like, I don't know, share this QAnon hashtag, that's a whole other subject. But
oh my goodness, yeah, well,
yeah. But if you're suddenly concerned about the children and about sex trafficking and about all that kind of stuff, just know that if you buy your porn from a content creator directly, you can pretty much guarantee that it is ethically sourced because that person not only that person put it out there themselves, that person filmed it themselves, of themselves. It's, yeah. And then a family member of my fiance's commented, was like, or you could just donate to charities to help people get out of sex work. And I was like,
oh my goodness.
I was like, that, I immediately was like, well, that assumes that everybody who's in sex work doesn't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously, with the example that I just used of solo content creators putting out their own work, that is obviously not the case.
Let's donate to charities and get people out of orthodontics. Like, clearly nobody wants to be in that job. We should donate so they don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's like donating to a food bank in order to rescue people from being like trapped in kitchens. You know, like I don't want to be dismissive of actual people who are being trafficked, particularly for sexual reasons.
Yeah.
But this idea is such a Trojan horse, and it is so divorced from what those people actually need. And I just think it's really important because we all want to save the children, right? Like one side of any particular argument doesn't get to own that. And it is such a confusing and frustrating thing because, you know, people don't necessarily investigate or recognize how their choices are lending to this situation. And, you know, as Rudy was talking about, legalizing sex work and broadening legal protections in different ways.
Exactly. I love this conversation. I want to just wrap this part up by asking, what can a supportive person, so this could be a friend or a partner or a client or just an ally, someone who's on board with this and wants to help, what can we do to combat that stigma? Like, what are some small steps that we can take to be like, hey, I'm with you?
Honestly, pay for your porn and don't be embarrassed about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I like that.
A lot more people do than people that actually admit it, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like we're keeping it a taboo by never talking about it. We're keeping it in that space of like, we don't talk about that. It's kind of, even if you're not like personally ashamed, I mean, not that you need to go around telling everybody, hey, check out this sports star that I like. She's my favorite. Like, you don't need to go around doing that. But you don't have to be like kind of in the closet about it either.
Mm-hmm.
In the spaces where it's appropriate to do so, you know, say so and defend that if you're challenged on it. Like, be like, what is actually wrong with this?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're like, I've had people target my fiance because like, oh, he's a cuck, ha ha ha, and it's like, he's the one that like, I'm buying him shit. Like, he, you guys just look. He gets to touch. I don't know what cooking is. Where is it?
Also, why is that a bad thing? If
Yeah,
he's
and
okay?
he obviously consented to this. He's aware that I'm doing it. He's taken some of those pictures that I post. He
Yeah.
is in some of those videos. He doesn't seem to mind. So why the hell does it matter?
Again, it's just, people like mind your own business. If you want in, be ethical, be polite, and be respectful. And if you don't want in, that's fine. Go do your thing, but let other people do theirs.
Yeah, well, and if we want to throw just a very small challenge to anybody listening right now, if you use porn, does your partner know about that? And what are those conversations like? I'd like to invite everybody listening to my voice to challenge themselves a little bit to answer that question for themselves and, see what answers bubble up and, start this process.
And if I might add a challenge, do you know if your porn is ethically sourced? Do you know? Just ask yourself. I don't know.
I like it. All right, let's jump into a couple more calls. We only have about 15 more minutes, and we do want to wrap this up with Rudy. So let's jump in with Jack in the UK.
Jack, we got you on the clock. What can we do for you?
Hi. I wanted to ask specifically if you're involved at all with the politics of in-person sex work and how it interacts with these online platforms, and like the critiques of in-person sex workers of the way that like there's a hierarchy between online sex work and in-person.
That has kind of changed a lot over the years, according to at least what I've understood about it, because basically once the start of Pornhub was the end of people being able to choose whether or not they wanted to be just porn stars or just prostitutes. Like they pretty much didn't, if they wanted to make any money, they pretty much had to do both, even if they didn't want to. So the lines between that have somewhat been broken down because of these free porn sites that just basically rake in ad revenue as opposed to actually buying the porn, being their way of making money. So ideally, I think that wouldn't be as much of a thing, because again, you don't always know where that porn is coming from when you are getting it from a massive website with just hundreds of thousands of videos from a bazillion different people. You don't know that all of those people were necessarily aware that they were being filmed some of the time, or that those people were not sex trafficked, whatever. But at the same time, even with the people who are totally like knowingly involved, they might have to have a side job of being an escort or doing prostitution or something like that just to pay the bills, because of those websites. Foreign movies don't pay that well anymore. But there's nothing wrong, I think, with escort services, prostitution services, as long as those people that are involved can actually choose to do it. And I think it would be even better, again, if it was legalized so these things could be regulated. And I mean, hell, imagine a union made of sex workers that could say, okay, these are our rules. This is what we stand by. This is our limits. And that's the standard for everybody. I mean, that would make things so much better. And I think that it would take a lot of the potential harm out of it.
I think part of why I was asking is because of the language that was being used about legalization, because obviously I've been listening to the show before I called in. I am an in-person sex worker, which is why I asked the question. And most of the people I know who do in-person sex work don't also do online. I mean, there are plenty of us who do, but most don't. Most are working either doing street work or from their own homes or from brothels. I mean, that's true in the US and in the UK, but I think it's more prevalent in the UK because we have less access to these platforms. But what I meant is how they intersect with things like OnlyFans. I know that, for example, there are policies that OnlyFans has specifically because of US laws on in-person sex work, like SESTA FOSTA, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the biggest concerns about the whole Sesta Fosta Act, was that once it was passed, it kind of made it a lot harder for in-person sex workers and escorts to find each other, to share information, to vet people online before meeting them in person, to cultivate a base of followers that they could then move into the in-person sphere with. So yeah, there is a direct connection between legalizing what is considered online activity and its impact on the outside world as well. So yeah, one of the reasons why Tumblr kind of died. It's one of the reasons why the Craigslist personal ads got taken down. Everywhere kind of shut down, and all of those platforms were being used by sex workers to protect themselves and find community with each other. So yeah, there is a direct link between the two.
Yeah, like I was thinking a lot about involvement and stuff, especially with like the way certain language is used. For example, like pretty much every sex worker organization that I'm aware of, like in the UK, the English Collective of Prostitutes or Swarm in the UK, like sex worker-led groups for sex workers' rights, almost all of them want decriminalization, not legalization. And I think there's this kind of disconnect between online sex workers and in person, specifically when the people who are doing online stuff aren't in person with like these organizations. And I think like there's lots of reasons for it. Some of it will be because they don't do outreach, right? Like organizations that are working with in-person sex workers are looking for in-person sex workers to talk to rather than online. But the people who are online have these like larger platforms and voices to talk about it versus someone doing street sex work. So I think like, I don't know, I was just interested if there's like overlap online in like the Twitter sphere on like different social media with sex work stuff. Like if there is overlap where people who are working online are hearing about like in-person sex work stuff from actual sex workers who are selling sex, or if it's like coming through other channels or what.
That is a really good question. How much overlap is there online between people who cam and people who work on the street? That is a very, I don't know if I have an answer to that. Rudy, do you find that you've got friends in both spheres, people you talk to, or what?
Well, the thing is, there's already so much, like as far as the stuff that I've seen from sex workers who promote themselves online on the various social media platforms, even the ones that are okay with, you know, X-rated stuff or R-rated stuff being on the platform, like Twitter, for example. Twitter allows nudity and stuff like that. Even then, if you have a link to OnlyFans in your post might get shadow banned. Your whole account might get shadow banned. So I can imagine it would be even more difficult for them to promote any kind of, or really talk about any kind of in-person sex work on social media. So if I do know people like that, I don't know that I know people like that, because they really, it's so difficult to talk about or to promote that kind of work because it is criminalized.
Yeah, also OnlyFans specifically has a policy that you cannot talk about on any of your associated platforms in-person sex work, or they will delete your OnlyFans account. So if you talk about the fact that you're involved in prostitution, they'll delete your OnlyFans account for it, because in their policy it says that you can't have social media where you talk about that and have an OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I imagine if you are seeing other people who have OnlyFans, right, if those are all the people you're interacting with, I mean, even if they are selling sex, they can't tell you because they can't post about it.
Yeah. So I probably have interacted with people who do that, but they can't talk about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Interesting. That is a really enlightening position to bring, Jack. So thank you. Yeah, I think this is making me want to dig into this even more. Rudy, we may need to have you back for a part two.
And maybe I need to dig. I mean, I'm thinking now about digging a little bit more, trying to talk to more people and, you know, find out more. Because you're right. It is, even with as stigmatized as it is, I still have a lot more of a voice than pretty much anybody that does in-person sex work, as far as being able to talk about it. So yeah, I fully agree with you on that.
Well, and it's worth noting that this has created something of a hierarchy among these different types of sites, because OnlyFans is certainly not the only website that does the things that OnlyFans does, but it is the biggest, the most polished, the most I think readily available and recognizable to like a mainstream middle class consumer base, and that allows them to use that power to maybe put their thumb on the scale a little bit and to have certain influence and control over the performers and the content creators that you don't necessarily see on other websites. And it really does serve to create some unfair distinctions that can be dangerous and unhealthy, really.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Jack. I really appreciate your perspective. It's a needed one on this show.
Thank you for your insight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we've got one more person. Let's shoot through this last call and then wrap up. Let's talk to Ace in Indiana.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to the show. What can we help you with tonight?
So I'll try to give the abridged version of my story really fast. So I grew up in Christianity, non-denominational, and my mom always pounded into us, basically, like, in other words, like, sex is bad. You can only have sex after marriage, blah, blah, whatever. And so I realized that I was asexual when I was around 16, and then came out as an asexual lesbian, like homoromantic, when I was like 18, and now I'm 20, and crazy enough, I'm in a relationship with a guy.
It happens.
To the best of us.
And so now I just I find myself struggling a lot with the asexual portion of myself. At nighttime, I struggle a lot with thinking about, you know, in the best way I can put it, you know, male genitalia and how to deal with that. And, you know, my boyfriend is very understanding and he's very patient with me, but it's just like this worry that I have that I'll never be able to, like, you know, support him in that way, like, enough, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Can I ask how long you've been in that relationship?
We're going on about a year now, which is like the longest relationship that I've been in.
Your experience is reminding me so much of my own relationship, because I am also in a relationship with an asexual person. And I typically think of myself as somebody who is probably more attracted to the feminine form, and my partner is a cis male. So, in some ways, we are kind of in similar boats.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we both worried about that kind of thing a lot really early in our relationship. Like, in fact, I found after he came out to me as ace, he told me that, like, a lot of the sex that we were having was just because he thought that we kind of had to. And I don't know if you're sex repulsed, like you don't do it at all, or if you're just kind of like, about it.
I've tried with him one time, but that's like the only time I've had an encounter with someone, and it didn't go horribly. It was like pretty much what I expected, where it was like, eh.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Yeah, and I'm saying that now, of course, for my own experience, but again, just for what my partner has told me, is like, it's not that he's demisexual, I think is what or gray asexual. So it's not that he gets nothing out of it, but it's like most of the time, if he has any sexual urges, he'd probably rather masturbate. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Is like sex.
Yeah, sounds a lot like me.
Yeah. So, is your partner worried about you not being able to take care of him sexually? Take care of. That's not.
It's all a lot in my head.
Yeah, that definitely totally reminds me of the beginning of our relationship. And I mean, all I can really say is you're probably going to have that discussion more than once. You're probably going to come to him saying, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm real kind of insecure about this. I worry about this. And he's going to reassure you again, it's really not that big of a deal. He's got 2 hands, you know.
Yeah.
That's probably going to happen just for a while, kind of possibly indefinitely, or maybe eventually you'll kind of just get over it. That's kind of what happened for us, is that eventually it was just like, we've been having this back and forth long enough that it kind of just went away after a while. It was like, it's pretty obvious that even though we have very different sexual desires, that we can both deal with our own stuff. And when we do have sex together, it's fine. But even though it doesn't happen very often, and it's like, it's fine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I can't offer too much more. I think Rudy really nailed that, especially coming from a position where they have been in a similar situation, if on the other side of it. I would just probably, I'm gonna cut Christy to the chase and say communication's key. You got to communicate. You got to make sure that you are telling your partner what you are feeling, what your concerns are, and don't let that fester, right? Don't let that turn into an anxiety that then turns into bitterness, because I've let that happen to me for different reasons, where I was like, I'm not going to bother my partner with my concerns. I'm just going to sit in them and stew and deal with them myself. And then it became a whole deal where I started feeling resentful for the fact that I had to feel this way, and they didn't know about it. So the best thing to do is just make sure that if you're feeling insecure, ask them for affirmation. If you're feeling like you're worried about whether or not they are getting what they need, ask them straight out. Come to them and say, hey, I'm just checking in. How are we doing? How are you? What do you need? How can we maybe reach some kind of a compromise position where we both get what we want, but aren't pushed beyond what we're comfortable with? So yeah, I'd say as long as you're communicating and you guys are dedicated to making this work, then you should be good.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for calling in. If you have the conversation and you come to a new conclusion, or you and your partner come to some kind of awesome, collaborative approach to this subject, definitely give us a call back. We'd love to hear more from you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ace. Have a good rest of your night. All right. We are wrapped up on calls and we are actually over time. So we had an entire segment that was going to kind of build into, what if somebody wants to create an OnlyFans account? What if they're listening to you tonight and they're like, you know what, this is something I think I'd be into, or something I'd be interested in trying. So let's abbreviate this a little bit and just cut right down to the chase. What would you tell people who are maybe interested in starting their own OnlyFans account?
I would tell them pretty much the same thing I've told everybody else who's asked me, which is be aware that OnlyFans takes a 20% cut. Be aware that if you want to keep an audience, you're going to have to post fairly regularly. I mean, you don't have to post multiple times a day like I do, but you with some regularity if you want to keep an audience. And my number one tip is that the real money isn't in the subscriptions. It's in whatever you can get out of people from actually interacting with them one-on-one. Like my subscription price is only like $5 a month, which is practically nothing. But I mean, the real money comes from, like, I do customs, I do sexting, I do yada, yada, yada. And that's where the real money is. So you kind of have to strategize a little bit. Advertise yourself. Promote, but promote smart so you don't get shadow banned on every single social media website that exists. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. I love it. And maybe, some shower.
Shower people fucking love shower content. That's the other one.
You're gonna do it anyway. Might as well film it.
Yeah. I want that to be merch so bad. So badly. All right. Let's wrap up. Rudy, how can people find you?
You can find me on social media pretty much under ExCultBaby for everything. If you are specifically looking for stuff relating to my OnlyFans, try looking under the username Rudy Bee 123. That is my OnlyFans username. That's my Twitter that I have specifically for my OnlyFans username. I occasionally post pictures onto that for the sake of promotion. And if you want to check out my OnlyFans, the link that is like the standard link is a 1-day free trial. So, you can check it out and see if that's the kind of thing you want. I mean, you can literally scroll through all of my content in like an hour. So, check it out. If you like it, then stay subscribed. If not, then you have lost nothing.
Sounds good. And if you liked the show today, if you want to continue to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter at Secular Sex. You can also call our ever popular hotline, which is 512-666-0ASK. That's 512-666-0275. You can leave us a voicemail that will play on the air and answer your question in our mailbag episodes. And you can get in touch with us via email at sex@atheist-community.org. Also, if you're on Facebook, you should check out our fan page, which is modded by fans and put together by fans. We've got a really awesome community down there. I don't know. I said down there like Facebook is like geographically below me.
It's
I mean, I feel like it resonates though, right?
Down there, it's like earthy, down to earth, bunch of
maybe not that so much. Yeah.
I don't know.
Can we get a pic of the crew cam up here so we can thank our amazing crew? Woo!
Appreciate everything y'all do.
Crew Cat, some new-ish call screeners. Thank you all for all that you're doing. And we are going to hop into the Discord after this real quick. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask us off air or just want to chat for a little bit before we wrap up for the night, feel free to visit that at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. We'll be chilling there for a couple of minutes. So come say hi.
Hey.
All right. Well, we are hoping if you're listening to this live that you'll join us. If you're listening after the fact, please jump into the conversation and all these different ways V's talking about. But, otherwise, no matter where you are or what you're doing, whether it's on your phone or with your computer, whether it is being filmed or not, I think we'd like to encourage everybody to go out and give themselves a big ol' orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
We are sorry, but the show has ended. Goodbye.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?